doing the absolute most to protect Black birthing people.
We believe that every birthing person in this country should have a choice in their providers.
Well, how does one of the most medically advanced nations in the world continue to fail Black birthing people?
The largest labor union in the country had been proposing a resolution to replace the word mother with birthing parent.
They talk about chest feeding. If you are able to feed your baby from your breasts, you're breastfeeding. You're not chest feeding, because my husband's got a chest and he couldn't breastfeed our child no matter how hard he tried.
Birthing people, the pregnant person.
Birthing people
versus birthing people.
Well, here's the controversial question being debated behind closed doors. In the attempt to be more trans-inclusive, are cisgender women being pushed to the side and diminished? Some say yes. That is the case, and it's unfair. But the critics say any cisgender woman who claims to be an ally yet has an issue with using inclusive terms is transphobic. Well, we're going to have an open conversation today in an honest and supportive environment. Now, to help with this, we're bringing the audience up close and personal to be active participants today. Now, I hope you viewers at home are just as open and not quick to cancel because you may not agree with the position you hear on stage. Now, I call myself an OWG, an old white guy. So I'm going to rely a lot on my guests to help educate me. And I'm going to ask a lot of questions. I'm hoping both sides can express their viewpoints and be respectful and walk away with a better understanding. I'm here to learn. Now, joining me today is Dr. Susie Denbo, professor of communications at Kent State University, specializing in gender, who has been here before and also on my podcast. I really wanted her to come back because I have a tremendous amount of respect for Susie. Susie, there you are. How you doing? Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Dansky, activist and author of The Abolition of Sex, How the Transgender Agenda Harms Women and Girls. Shandy Moore is another former guest and nationally recognized HIV and trans activist working for Children's Hospital Los Angeles Center for Trans Youth and Development, and speaker, advocate, and non-binary birthing person, Danny Wakefield, known as Danny the Trans Dad. Now, Shandy has also been here before and someone I have tremendous respect for as well. Also joining us virtually is Ruth Barrett, author of Female Erasure, What You Need to Know About Gender Politics, War on Women, the Female Sex, and Human Rights. So there are two sides here, and there's a lot of energy about this. Let me start with you, Susie. Is this a valid debate, and is it going too far?
Well, I'll wait to see how the different sides represent themselves as far as the extremes, if it's too far. But I do think what I find fascinating about this topic is that there is merit to both sides, to each side as they're presented today, in the sense of cisgendered women wanting to patrol the boundaries around the women's movement and how we do advocacy and how to organize with a unified sort of front. And there is certainly merit from individuals that identify as non-binary or trans, however, just non-binary, non-cisgendered women, to have a stake in this argument as well and to want to be included in a women's movement here in the United States.
Kara, why is this issue important to discuss?
Well, first, thanks for having me, and thanks for having the conversation. One of the frustrating things about this, I've been working on issues like this for many years now, and it's very difficult to have a conversation in the national media. So thank you so much for doing this. I do just want to say quickly, in your introduction, you said, and Susie mentioned cisgender. So I do not call myself a cisgender woman. I am a woman because I'm an adult human female. And I think that that is a very important part of this conversation. I think it's really important that we be very clear and accurate in the language that we use. So that's why I think this is such an important conversation.
Well, I do too, and I think a lot of people are confused. A lot of people are, in their hearts, say, I love humanity. I love people, and it matters not to me whether someone is gay or transgender or whatever, but I'm afraid if I ask a question and say something wrong, then I'm going to say you're transphobic. You don't agree with everything I think, and that's not really been my experience, but I do think some people fear talking about it, and so I figured just charge the machine gun nest and let's just get out there and talk about it, because I think people do want to talk about this. Shandy, what do you think about this? It's good to see you again, by the way.
Good to see you too, Dr. Field, and I'm glad that you said thank you for this conversation, because it's good that we're having the conversation. That's the only way we're going to move forward with it. I think that it's great that we're looking at these things, because I've been told that I'm not a woman because I can't have a period, I can't have babies, but there's actual women who can't do those things too. So it doesn't make them less of a woman. So opening the door to this, it's going to be amazing. I'm ready.
Yeah. And by the way, thank you for the work you do at Children's Hospital of Los Angeles. That's just a wonderful organization, and you do great work there. Now, I've heard a lot of women say, look, we fought for the right to vote, practice law, equal pay. Some now feel sidelined due to what they're referring to as the erasure of women. It's like we fought so hard to get all of these rights and are still on a journey, and now that's being eroded, that's being taken away. Is that a fair concern?
It is a concern, and there is a case that can be made for it. I don't necessarily agree with that, in the sense that an underlying assumption of this entire argument is that sex, maleness, femaleness, male, female, whatever, is the most fundamental difference that makes a difference, and that's simply not true. And when I say that, I mean that there is no such thing as a monolithic category of woman. So when it's like the erasure of women, well, which women? There's so much diversity within that category, and the reality is that most research shows, social scientific research shows, that men and women, just broadly speaking, have more in common than they have differences. The differences emerge along race, class, sexuality, ability, and those sorts of things.
I want to point out there's something inherently contradictory in what Dr. Susie just said, which is that she started out by saying there's no such thing as a monolithic category called women. That is, of course, not true. There is. But then she followed up by saying there are men and there are women, which is true. And Susie knows exactly what that category is when she says it.
No, that's not what I meant.
Many people are afraid to speak up about this topic, as I said, but not my next guest. We're going to talk more about this when we come back.
Non-binary birther. For those of you who don't know, I gave birth to my child. I'm not a woman. Having female anatomy and being a woman are two different things.
But they're not, though.
Tomorrow,